A teenage king stricken with a deadly disease faces one of the greatest warriors the world has ever known. Outnumbered, outmatched, and underestimated, Baldwin Roman IV of Jerusalem takes the battlefield at Montgisard in 1177. Every move, every decision could mean life or death. With courage, strategy, and sheer audacity, the young king turns the tide, shocking the world and leaving a legacy that history will never forget. Witness the incredible story of bravery, faith, and defiance. The Battle of Montgisard, where a teenager became a legend. The year is 1177, and the Holy Land is a tinderbox of tension, fear, and political maneuvering. Jerusalem, the heart of the Crusader kingdom, lies precariously perched between powerful Muslim forces to the east and internal strife among its own leaders. The young king of Jerusalem, Baldwin Roman IV, known to history as the Leper King, rules this fragile kingdom. At barely 16 years old, his body bears the unmistakable signs of leprosy, a disease that robs him of physical strength and the use of his limbs over time. Yet, despite this cruel affliction, Baldwin possesses a mind of extraordinary courage, tactical brilliance, and unyielding determination. The fate of the Crusader states rests not only on his decisions, but on his ability to inspire his knights and people to defy impossible odds. Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, has risen as one of the most formidable figures of the medieval world. His reputation precedes him. He is a man of unflinching ambition, military genius, and deep faith, commanding loyalty from tens of thousands of troops. Saladin has spent years consolidating power across Muslim territories and steadily reclaiming lands once held by Crusaders. His armies are disciplined, seasoned, and confident in their superiority. The sheer size of his forces strikes fear into those who oppose him. By November 1177, Saladin sets his sights on the kingdom of Jerusalem, expecting a swift and decisive conquest. The young king, however, is prepared to challenge this expectation in a way that will stun the world. The terrain near Montgisard, just north of the coastal city of Ramla, is a strategic choice for the impending confrontation. The plains are open, allowing cavalry to maneuver, yet dotted with rough hills and narrow passes that can be exploited for tactical advantage. Knowledge of the land is a crucial asset for Baldwin, who has spent his life navigating the political and physical landscapes of a kingdom under constant threat. Saladin's army, confident and perhaps overconfident, advances along this terrain, unaware of the full resolve of the seemingly fragile boy who commands the defenders of Jerusalem. Inside the walls of Jerusalem, the atmosphere is tense and electric. Baldwin Roman IV, though young, carries the weight of kingship with a poise that belies his years. He meets with his generals and knights, many of whom are seasoned veterans of the Crusades. He listens to their counsel, but makes the final decisions with a clarity and decisiveness that commands respect. Every choice matters: the deployment of troops, the timing of the attack, the morale of his knights. Baldwin understands that his presence on the battlefield, even limited by the constraints of his illness, will inspire his men to fight with a courage beyond their own. His reputation as a strategic thinker, combined with the personal aura of determination, turns fear into loyalty, hesitation into action. Meanwhile, Saladin marches forward, unaware that Baldwin has devised a bold plan. The Sultan believes that his sheer numbers will overwhelm the Crusaders. He has faced many opponents in his campaigns, but none quite like this young king. Saladin's confidence is palpable among his ranks. They see themselves as an unstoppable force, moving like a tidal wave across the Levant. Yet, within this overconfidence lies a critical vulnerability, the assumption that the Crusader army, small in comparison, would submit to inevitable defeat without resistance. The Crusader knights, fully aware of the danger, display a mixture of anxiety and awe. They have seen Baldwin in action before and understand that his tactical mind often turns apparent weakness into advantage. Though heavily outnumbered, they trust his judgment, knowing that his commands are rooted in precise calculations rather than impulsive bravery. The tension is immense, for the consequences of failure are catastrophic. If the Crusaders fall, the kingdom could be plunged into chaos, the morale of Jerusalem shattered, and Saladin's dominance solidified in the region. As dawn breaks on the day of battle, the plains of Montgisard are shrouded in mist, lending a surreal quality to the landscape. It is a quiet that belies the storm to come, the deceptive calm before the clash of armies. Baldwin IV, mounted on a horse despite the weakness caused by his illness, surveys the battlefield. His knights stand ready, their armor gleaming in the early light, banners fluttering with the emblem of Jerusalem. Baldwin's eyes, though showing the signs of suffering, burn with determination. He knows that courage, surprise, and precise execution are his greatest weapons. Saladin's army appears on the horizon, a massive force stretching across the plains. The ground trembles with the march of horses, the clanging of armor, and the disciplined chant of soldiers prepared for conquest. The sheer scale is intimidating, yet Baldwin remains unmoved, his strategy relying on exploiting speed, terrain, and the element of surprise. He understands that the battle will not be won through brute strength, but through audacity, precision, and the unbreakable will of a kingdom fighting for survival. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation. Birds scatter from the trees. The wind carries the distant sound of drums and horns, and the soldiers of both sides sense the momentous nature of the confrontation. Baldwin IV, despite the physical limitations imposed by his disease, inspires a confidence that no number of enemy troops can shake. His presence, his decisiveness, and his intimate knowledge of the land create an aura of inevitability, a sense that history itself is watching this young king stand, defiant against overwhelming odds. This moment, poised on the edge of history, defines the essence of leadership under pressure. Baldwin IV embodies the paradox of weakness and strength, mortality and courage, youth and wisdom. His confrontation with Saladin at Montgisard is not merely a battle over territory. It is a symbolic struggle between audacity and arrogance, faith and ambition, cunning and force. Every decision, every maneuver, every command uttered by Baldwin carries the weight of an entire kingdom and the eyes of the world. As the armies move closer, the tension reaches its peak. Baldwin IV is acutely aware that failure could mean not only the loss of his throne, but the destruction of his people and the hope of the Crusader states. Yet, within him burns the certainty that courage and cleverness can triumph over overwhelming numbers. The stage is set for a confrontation that will resonate through history, where a teenage king, stricken with leprosy, stands as a beacon of defiance, ready to challenge one of the greatest military minds of his time. Montgisard, with its plains and hidden advantages, will become the backdrop for a tale of strategy, bravery, and legendary heroism. Baldwin Roman IV's decision to confront Saladin in this moment of peril will define him not only as a ruler but as an enduring symbol of leadership, demonstrating that true power often lies not in size or strength, but in courage, foresight, and unwavering resolve. The scene is set, the players are in position, and history waits, poised to witness the extraordinary defiance of a boy king who refused to bow to destiny's cruelty. The morning sun had barely risen over the plains of Montgisard when Baldwin Roman IV gave the signal. Despite his frail body and the debilitating effects of leprosy, the teenage king had positioned himself where his presence would inspire his knights without exposing him to unnecessary danger. His strategy relied not on brute force, but on precision, speed, and the element of surprise. The Crusader army, though heavily outnumbered, exuded a quiet, resolute confidence. They knew their king's mind was sharper than any sword, and that courage could be as deadly as numbers. Saladin's army, stretching in seemingly endless lines across the plains, advanced with the arrogance of assured victory. The Sultan himself rode at the forefront, surveying the land and expecting to encounter scattered resistance at most. His cavalry was elite, his infantry disciplined, and his archers deadly, yet Saladin underestimated the audacity of Baldwin Roman IV and the resolve of the Crusader knights who would follow him to the edge of annihilation. The first clash came suddenly. Baldwin, anticipating Saladin's movement, had arranged his forces to exploit the enemy's overconfidence. Hidden terrain and a sudden charge allowed the Crusader knights to strike at the Sultan's vanguard, sowing confusion in the tightly packed lines of the Ayyubid army. Horses reared, banners were torn down, and the disciplined formation of Saladin's troops wavered. Shocked by the unexpected ferocity of such a small force, his commanders struggled to regroup. The Crusaders pressed their advantage, striking with the precision of men who had everything to lose and nothing to fear. Baldwin Roman IV, mounted despite his weakening body, rode along the front lines, his presence galvanizing his knights. His voice, firm and commanding, cut through the chaos. Orders shouted, encouragements given, the sound of leadership piercing the clamor of battle. The knights fought with a fervor that bordered on reckless bravery, inspired by their king who faced the enemy despite his illness. Each maneuver, each charge, and each flanking strike was executed with meticulous timing. Baldwin's understanding of the battlefield turned his perceived weakness into an unanticipated strength. He could read the enemy's movements and respond with unmatched agility, while Saladin's massive force struggled to adapt. The battle became a whirlwind of steel, blood, and smoke. Crusader knights charged again and again, exploiting every opening created by Saladin's momentary lapses in coordination. Archers on both sides released volleys that darkened the skies, yet the Crusaders' momentum never faltered. Saladin, realizing the unexpected ferocity of the attack, tried to rally his men. His presence in the thick of the fighting inspired loyalty, yet the confusion caused by Baldwin's daring strikes could not be easily contained. Cavalry units collided, horses fell, and the disciplined formations of the Ayyubid army began to crumble under relentless pressure, one of the defining moments came when Baldwin IV, understanding the psychological impact of boldness, led a concentrated strike against the heart of Saladin's forces. The Crusaders, small in number but precise in execution, created a breach in the enemy lines. Saladin himself was forced to confront the young king's audacity directly, and for the first time the great Sultan felt the weight of uncertainty pressing upon him. The Crusader knights surged through the gap, spreading panic and disorder. Soldiers who had anticipated an easy victory now found themselves overwhelmed by a foe who refused to yield. The battlefield was chaotic and brutal. Injuries and casualties mounted, yet the morale of the Crusaders remained high, buoyed by the knowledge that they were led by a king who embodied their courage. Baldwin IV, despite the fatigue and pain of his illness, continued to direct movements with clarity, exploiting every hesitation, every misstep from Saladin's forces. By midday, the numerical advantage of the Sultan had been neutralized by strategy, daring, and the unyielding spirit of the defenders of Jerusalem. As the sun climbed higher, Saladin's army began a disciplined retreat, recognizing that further engagement would risk catastrophic losses. The Crusaders, though exhausted, pressed the attack just enough to ensure that the Sultan's forces could not regroup immediately. The plains of Montgisard, once filled with the confidence of an invading army, now bore the marks of a stunning reversal. Baldwin IV's audacity and leadership had transformed an impossible situation into an extraordinary victory. When the dust settled, the young king surveyed the battlefield. The Crusader army, though battered and weary, had achieved what many thought impossible. They had defied Saladin, disrupted his forces, and emerged victorious against overwhelming odds. The psychological impact of this battle would resonate far beyond Montgisard, proving that courage, strategy, and leadership could triumph over sheer numbers and reputation. The Battle of Montgisard was not merely a clash of armies. It was a dramatic demonstration of human will, tactical brilliance, and the power of defiance. Baldwin IV, stricken with leprosy and yet undeterred, had turned the tide of history in a single, decisive engagement. His triumph would be remembered not for the numbers involved, but for the courage, determination, and brilliance of a teenage king who refused to yield to destiny or fear. The Battle of Montgisard was more than a fleeting victory on a medieval battlefield. It was a defining moment that reverberated through the history of the Crusades and the legacy of leadership itself. To fully grasp why this confrontation mattered, one must understand the precarious position of the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem in 1177. Nestled between hostile forces and facing the formidable rise of Saladin, Jerusalem's survival was uncertain. The kingdom's military strength was limited, its political landscape fractured, and its leaders burdened with constant threats. In this context, the audacious actions of a teenage king changed the trajectory of history, not merely by repelling an invasion, but by inspiring courage, consolidating faith, and altering the strategic calculations of powerful adversaries. Baldwin IV's victory at Montgisard demonstrated that leadership transcends physical strength. Stricken with leprosy, the young king's body betrayed him, yet his mind, courage, and tactical genius commanded respect and loyalty. His presence on the battlefield instilled morale in his knights and soldiers, transforming fear into action. By achieving a stunning victory against overwhelming odds, Baldwin proved that strategic acumen, decisive leadership, and the ability to inspire others could outweigh numerical superiority. This principle resonates throughout history and remains relevant in military and organizational contexts even today. Montgisard serves as a timeless example that true power often lies in intellect and determination rather than size or force alone. The battle also had profound psychological implications. Saladin, widely regarded as one of the most formidable military leaders of his era, experienced a rare and humbling setback. The Crusader victory shattered the perception of his invincibility, demonstrating that even the most powerful forces could be challenged by daring, well-coordinated resistance. This shift in perception was significant not only for the morale of the Crusaders, but also for the political landscape of the Levant. Local lords, allies, and potential adversaries would now view Baldwin Roman IV and Jerusalem as capable of decisive action, increasing the kingdom's influence and reinforcing its legitimacy despite its internal vulnerabilities. Beyond military and psychological factors, Montgisard carried symbolic weight. It was a testament to courage in the face of adversity, a story of faith and resilience that transcended the battlefield. Baldwin Roman IV's personal struggle with leprosy made his triumph even more extraordinary. Here was a king whose body was failing him, yet whose spirit and determination inspired an army to achieve the seemingly impossible. In this sense, Montgisard was more than a military engagement. It became a legend, a narrative that reinforced the ideals of honor, leadership, and steadfastness that defined the Crusader ethos. It reminded contemporaries and future generations that heroism is measured not only by victories, but by the courage to confront impossible odds. Strategically, the victory at Montgisard delayed Saladin's plans for further conquests, buying valuable time for the Crusader states to consolidate and prepare for future conflicts. Though the broader Crusades would continue, and Saladin would eventually achieve remarkable successes, this battle demonstrated that bold action, speed, and the intelligent use of terrain could neutralize even the most powerful forces. It highlighted the importance of leadership, planning, and morale elements often more decisive than raw manpower. Baldwin Roman IV's success illustrated that warfare is as much a contest of will and ingenuity as of swords and spears. Ultimately, the Battle of Montgisard endures as a story of extraordinary courage, leadership, and resilience. It matters because it defies conventional expectations about age, physical limitations, and the balance of power. A teenage king, burdened by a debilitating disease, reshaped the course of history through audacity and skill. His victory became a symbol of hope and determination, reminding the world that bravery, vision, and unwavering resolve can leave a lasting mark, even against seemingly insurmountable odds. Montgisard remains a testament to the power of human will and the enduring impact of courageous leadership. The story of Baldwin Roman IV at Montgisard is more than a tale of swords and strategy. It is a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Here was a boy, barely more than a teenager, stricken with a cruel disease that would claim his life, standing unbowed before an army 10 times the size of his own. He faced not just an enemy of immense skill and reputation, but the weight of destiny itself. And yet he did not falter. Baldwin's triumph was born of courage, wisdom, and unwavering resolve. He reminds us that true leadership is not measured by physical strength or numbers, but by the ability to inspire others, to act decisively in the face of fear, and to embrace audacity when the world expects retreat. His knights followed him not because they were compelled, but because they believed in the vision and heart of their king. The Battle of Montgisard teaches us that limitations, whether of body, circumstance, or expectation, do not define the power of a leader. Even in the direst moments when all seems lost, boldness and clarity of purpose can change the course of history. Baldwin IV's courage turned despair into victory, fear into resolve, and vulnerability into a legend that endures through centuries. So when we remember Montgisard, let it not only be as a battle won, but as a story that speaks to the very essence of human determination. Let it remind us that even the smallest force, guided by conviction and bravery, can defy giants. Baldwin IV defied Saladin, defied fate, and in doing so left a legacy that whispers across time. Courage, vision, and heart can overcome the impossible.